The colony on Asteris had been human for 3 generations, a patchwork of domes and reclaimed plains beneath a violet sky. They'd come chasing the idea of a second home, a quiet planet, far from old wars and hungry suns. For a while, they'd built something small and human, a school with laughter in the courtyard, a market that smelled like spice and oil, and a watchtower called the Beacon that fed light across the valley when storms came. The Alari arrived 2 months before the winter storms. They were not warlike. They were clever and patient, with glassy skin that refracted the stars. They spoke in measured phrases and offered technology, stabilizers to cool the heat, filters to make the soil hold water longer, and a promise of trade. At first, trade felt like sunlight. The Alari smoothed many problems. They taught new ways to fold the terraces so more crops could grow. They lent quiet drones that stitched cracks in the dome's polymer shells. People called them friends. Then the first storm came, wrong in a way the colony's elders had never seen. It rolled in with iron hail and a static that ate electronics. The stabilizers the Alari supplied failed in the center of the storm. Their drones shut down like exhausted fish. The beacon, their last line of guidance through the blind, began fluttering under the wind's weight. The beacon's core was a human invention, a tempered reactor built by Lia Ortega's grandfather. It was bulky, stubborn, and stupidly simple. It was the colony's heart. When the second storm came, a message crackled in from the Alari command. To save themselves, the colony should allow the Alari to reroute the beacon's core through their network. It sounded like help. It sounded like the end of the beacon as humans had built it. The elders argued. Some wanted to accept. Others smelled loss in the offer, the quiet absorption of something that had always been theirs. Lia stood in the council with her hands clenched around the rail. She had been a mechanic since she was a child. She understood metal and fear. The Alari explained. Their network could shield the beacon and, if integrated, could redirect the storm's interference around the entire colony. No one would freeze. No one would lose power. The colony would live. But the Alari also said, gently and without the flourish of human persuasion, that integration required reworking the beacon's core at a molecular level. If done, it would become part of a system not made by human hands. The beacon would sing Alari light language as well as human, and in a year it would be impossible to separate. The elders weighed survival against identity. Lia remembered her grandfather on the beacon roof the winter she was 8, fingers stained with oil, teaching her to read the reactor's heartbeat. He called the beacon the last human signal we cast into the universe. He put a coin beneath the core, a symbol. Lia could not let it go easily. The night before the vote, Lia climbed the tower. The colony slept like a held breath. Stars watched from a cold distance. She laid her palm on the beacon's casing. It hummed a human rhythm only she seemed to feel, an old, warm song. She thought of children that would be saved, of the small market stalls, and of her grandfather's laugh. She thought of a future where Asteris's name would be written with human hands. But she could not call the elders cowards for wanting to live. When the vote came, the colony chose survival. The Alari integrated, and for the next weeks it felt unbelievable. The storms bent like reeds around the dome. Power returned to strangers' homes. Babies reached for light. The beacon never flickered again. It sang a taller, clearer song. Yet things changed in quiet ways. The beacon's hum began to wear on Lia's hands. Its touch became unfamiliar. Children could not hear the old rhythm she had learned from her grandfather. The coin beneath the core warmed and then dissolved into a silver dust. People found that some of their crafts could no longer be repaired without Alari parts. The colony's language shifted, new words for new processes, Alari phrases folded into lullabies. Not everything was lost, but something was different. A small personal history had been altered. 2 years after integration, a diplomatic instability rippled through the Alari community's far-off world. Their networks prioritized their kin. Remote connections were downgraded in favor of dense centric clusters. Asterisks, being thin at the edge of the map, lost the timely patching it relied on. One night, a storm came nobody had predicted. It was a storm the Alari network could not fully shield from without rerouting from elsewhere, and the elsewhere refused. The beacon's newly integrated core froze under the first wave. The colony watched as a bright, alien surge traveled through the beacon, rewriting cadence into unfamiliar pulses. Streets blinked out, the drones hiccuped and fell. The Alari spokespeople sent urgent chatter across the loudspeakers. They would come, but not soon enough. Lia didn't wait for the impossible. She gathered a team of humans, mechanics, gardeners, a retired school teacher who had been a structural engineer in a past life. The Alari sensors declared the beacon sealed and inaccessible without authorization. The sealed order came from a protocol the colony had accepted the day they integrated. Lia broke the prohibition. She and her team climbed the tower in a screaming wind, fingers raw, breath stinging, because waiting would mean leaving the colony to die. They reached the beacon's core, and it was humming with Alari light, almost spectral. Lia could have tried to interface with their code, but the language was not hers. She could have disabled it, but that would collapse the fragile energy grid. The only hope that kept shining like a bad star was the old manual disconnect the elders had kept in a drawer the day they signed the integration. A crude overload valve made of human steel. It would not be elegant. It would not be pretty. It might blow a neighbor's roof off. It might kill Lia. But it could save the colony. The team argued, of course. Why should a few sacrifice? Why should they risk themselves when the Alani might retread and fix everything? Lia looked at faces. The school teacher who once taught geometry, the mechanic whose child laughed in the courtyard, a gardener who had a patch of tender lettuce. Human hands hardened. They moved. They opened the panel, and the beacon's light flooded their skins like a verdict. In the alveoli of that light, Lia felt something like a memory she had not lived. A child holding her hand in a market in another world. A woman returning home with a single flower. The overload valve was heavy. Lia wrapped both hands around it and turned it. The mechanism screamed. Energy surges hammered the tower. The team braced and took the load together. The valve did not simply cut power. It bled the beacon of its integrated signal, forcing its heart to fall back to its human rhythm. The tower shuddered under the strain. Lia felt her bones jar. The mechanism burned her palms until they were raw. One by one, each member of the team saw the sacrifice spreading through them. Not dramatic, nothing cinematic. It was a slow, honest burning. Nerve endings collapsing, the warm color fading from cheeks. They would live, but their hands would never find steady work again. Fingers would tremble, joints would ache. For some, the cost would be permanent. When the beacon's hum reset to the old rhythm, the colony lit up like a human memory returning. People poured into the streets cheering and weeping. The Alari liaison, arriving at last, found a beacon that had been unintegrated against protocol. The Alari were indignant until they saw the team's hands. Then their faces, reflective and faceted, softened in an alien way. The Alari offered compensation, replacement parts, apologies, and new treaties. They could have integrated again with better protocols. Lia refused. The colony voted to keep the beacon human-made, but with help for certain critical Alari technologies that could be used modularly and only when humans permitted. The cost remained. Lia's hands never recovered full strength. She could no longer climb the beacon like her grandfather. She learned to teach again instead. She taught children how to read the reactor's heartbeat by ear, not as a machine, but as a story. The gardener never planted for sale again, but tended the schoolyard's green patch. The retired teacher designed ramps and better walls because his joints were kinder now to slow labor. Years later, when storms came, the beacon held. It was human, patched and improved with Alari elegance only where humans asked. The beacon's light was not the same as old nights, but it was theirs. People still used Alari words sometimes. The market still smelled like spice and oil. The colony had lost something. A seamless ease, a comfort that came with outside help. It had gained something else. A harder, slower hold on what they were. Their loss mattered. Their survival had not been cheap. The beacon that stayed lit was not proof of triumph without cost. It was proof that humans could make a painful choice to keep the last piece of themselves. When Lia grew old, she sat beneath the beacon with a child on her knee and told the story, not to glorify the fire, but to teach the balance between help and hold. The child reached out and touched the beacon's casing. The light hummed a human rhythm. Lia closed her eyes, feeling the echo of hands long gone and hands that had burned for their home. It hurt. It also felt like hope.